I say we get this show on the road. What do you think, Yolanta?
Let's hit it.
Cool. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get it going. So, guys, I am super excited to welcome everyone here today. Super excited to join to be on stage here with Jolanta Smulski of Pet Pro Media. I'll introduce her in a minute here, but we are talking about an incredibly important topic for all of our businesses, and that is Q4. As Jolanta said just a few minutes ago, it is right around the corner. And if you're waiting until the weekend before Black Friday to start planning those Black Friday sales and operations, then you are way behind the curve. So for those of you guys that are in here and are ready to get ahead of your competition and get ahead of the game, you're in the right spot to do just that today. So we are going to get into this in a minute here, but I do want to tell you a little bit about who's hosting this webinar right now. So this webinar is hosted by the Pet Industry Network. The Pet Industry Network is a collaborative group of trusted, experienced experts helping pet businesses grow smarter across every area of their business. So operations, hiring, branding, marketing, sales, business development, and beyond. So whether you are a pet brand or a retailer or a service provider or a manufacturer, our goal is to connect you with the people and strategies that actually move the needle. So if you're not already familiar with PIN, definitely check us out. We will drop a link in the chat. It's at www.petindustry.network.com. I am a co-founder of the Pet Industry Network. Jolanta Smulski is actually my other co-founder. However, I'm excited to be joined by Jolanta Smulski, not the co-founder of the Pet Industry Network, but the founder of Pet Pro Media. Jolanta Smulski is a business growth advisor, dynamic speaker. You may have seen her on stage at Super Zoo, Global Pet Expo, other big trade shows like that. She's also the founder of Pet Pro Media. What Jolanta does is help pet businesses market with confidence using smarter AI-powered strategies that not only save time, but also drive results. So I have been working personally with Jolanta, and I know that she's worked with hundreds of other pet businesses. And in addition to co-founding the Pet Industry Network to support collaboration and growth across the industry, she's definitely known for her energy, her style, her strategic insights, and the way that she can equip pet professionals with these proven systems to work smarter, grow faster, and make a bigger impact. So guys, if you would do me a huge favor and welcome Jolanta to the room. I want to see it in chat. Give some snaps, maybe some emojis before we really get started here. Jolanta, it is always a pleasure to have you on board, and thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing your expertise and your time. And I can't wait to dig in.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, especially after Super Zoo last month. What I have been able to track and notice in the last few years in educating about AI is how that has evolved from just interest to serious adoption. Is the word that I would use. And so we're here today to help you take it to that next level and kick it up a notch. So I'm excited to dive in.
I am excited too. I think it has been the topic of the year, not just this year, but last year and probably the year before as well. So guys, a quick agenda for what we're going to be going over today. So we've got 5 areas that we're going to get to, and really starting out with the challenges that you guys face and how AI can provide a solution for that. And we're going to move into what's different about Q4. So how shoppers and consumers behave differently. Then we're going to really get into the meat and potatoes here. So how you can capture their attention quickly and stop that scroll, and then convert that attention into revenue for your business. Last, but certainly not least, we got to overcome some of those obstacles that we all face in our businesses every single day and just get started. So I know that, Jolanta is going to be sharing a whole bunch of great tips and knowledge with you today. So if you haven't pulled out a notebook or got a note document up, definitely do that. So Jolanta, I know you want to get an idea of who we have in the room today.
Absolutely. I think it's really important to take a temperature check. That way we can curate the discussion towards the level that best represents everybody in the room while still addressing all the other levels at the same time. So first off, I would love for everyone in the room to just drop it inside the chat on a scale of 1 to 5. How much are you using AI in your business today? And I'm going to explain what these mean, right? One being AI curious. You've been experimenting with tools here and there, but your inputs and chats are a little bit scattered, right? You may be asking the tool for content without using any organized structure or prompts. There's no consistency. Three, being in the middle, AI adopting, right? So you're starting to use AI features more strategically that are built into the platforms that you already know, maybe even through your email marketing platforms or in Canva. You may have some great use cases, but the quality still varies a lot. And then finally, five, being AI integrated. And what that looks like is AI is embedded into your workflows, and you have a centralized place where you like to keep all of those knowledge and prompts that you've developed through your use, and you have consistent processes that not only you, but you have your team use alongside you. And the challenges that you might be facing are more around data quality and balancing AI assistance with human expertise and measuring the ROI as you scale. So just on a 1 to 5, let's take a look inside the chat. Okay, we've got awesome. We've got 1 5 in the room. We've got a bunch of 4s, a couple of 3s, 1s and 2s. So we are actually pretty scattered across the board, but I would say that there are a significant number of 4s, which is really exciting because like I mentioned earlier, it's been such a huge shift from where we started just a few years ago with AI. A lot of people are now embedding it into their regular workflows, and now it's about how do we take it up, kick it up a notch to that next level. So moving on to the next question. Please drop it in the chat, 1, 2, or 3. Which is your biggest holiday marketing challenge of these 3, right? 1 being getting customers' attention, 2 being converting attention into sales, or 3 being finding time and resources to market. Okay, so 1, 2, or 3, I want to see in the room, which is the biggest holiday marketing challenge that we are facing consistently across the board? So we have a lot of 3s for finding time and resources to market, right? We have a couple of 2s, converting attention into sales. It's interesting that nobody has put number 1 yet, getting customers' attention, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So we have 1. Okay.
Got one.
Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you, Patrice.
There we go. But it seems like a very common pain point across the board is finding time and resources to market. Okay. So last one that I want to hit the group with is, if you can answer this question, finish the sentence. If I had more attention from customers this Q4, I would XYZ blank. What that might look like for you if you are a retailer is you would have more, if you had more attention, you would have more foot traffic and sales. If you had, if you were a service provider like grooming, daycare, boarding, you would have more inquiries, right? That you can nurture into more bookings. If you had more attention, if you're a brand, or a small brand manufacturer, that can look like online engagement that translates in you might want to translate into customer loyalty. So if you can finish the sentence, this requires a little bit of thinking. I see that the chat is a little bit quiet. If you had more attention from customers this Q4, what would you do? So Christine's shared more foot traffic, sales, new visitors to the store wanting to get a head start on leveling up their pet's nutrition for the new year. Absolutely.
I love the vision there.
Yeah, that's thinking ahead, right? Because yes, today's topic is all about the holiday season, but really we need to be focused on what's going to happen in Q4 once that ends, Q1 once that's over. So we have Steven sharing, work on educating my customers. Absolutely. Michelle shared, adopt more dogs out and increase nutrition education and sales. Fantastic. All right, these are some really, really great outcomes that we could work together on achieving if you had more, streamlined marketing for Q4 that you could actually drive measurable results with, right? To help facilitate this in your business. And we also, Christine also followed up with, because Q1 is usually very quiet starting out. So being ahead of that is my goal for this year. Who else in the room feels like Q1 is very quiet, right? Seems like it can be the quietest season all year round after such a busy Q4. So Patty shared more foot traffic, new customers, increased customer knowledge, and Connie shared, explain the benefits of quality and the time is now. Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better, Connie. The time is now, because what's happening is, the industry landscape is shifting very fast, consumer behavior and preferences along with it. And with that, you have, AI really shifting, changing that landscape in terms of the way consumers are, getting the way you're getting attention from consumers and their purchase decisions, and whether they decide to continue purchasing with you or not, and who really speaks to them. So we're going to touch on all of these different elements during today's discussion. That's just a little bit of a snapshot, a preview. I'm going to let Matt go ahead and take it away from here.
Yeah, well, let's get into this discussion here. So guys, before we really get going, I do just want to let you know that if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We do have a time dedicated at the end of this for Q&A specifically. It helps us if you could label them with a Q. I just put an example in the chat there. That helps me take note of it. Like I said, we will have time at the end to answer these, and we'll try and get to everybody's, right? So sharing this screen now and move us on to the first part of our discussion. So, Jolanta, you mentioned that Q4 is really uniquely challenging for pet businesses, right? Where do you feel like AI is maybe most helpful for this particular, time of the year?
Absolutely. So when you're thinking about Q4 and the challenges that it presents and how AI can assist in that, think about it this way. Your customers are seeing hundreds and hundreds of seasonal promotions every single week, and their inboxes are overflowing with different offers, and their brains are, scanning and skipping and moving on in most cases, right? And for you as a pet business owner, that means your good ideas, they may be losing to your competitors who are able to capture that attention. And, your customer's attention is getting lost to that noise. And you're also facing a situation where in Q4, your operational load is just so much higher. So we had pretty much consistency across the board in that poll question about not having enough resources or time to market, right? So that consistency gets really heavily impacted by that operational load. Whether you're a retailer, then that may look like inventory management. If you are a service provider, it might be your capacity swinging back and forth, and then also content volume for brands, right? Churning out so many promotions and offers, trying to see what sticks. And even when you know what to say, because you are the expert, this is something that if you've been in any of my sessions with me before, when you're leveraging AI to assist you, right? Not replace you, to assist you. You remain the expert and the voice in your messaging and in your marketing, but not having that time to say what you want to say clearly, consistently, and everywhere that it needs to show up, which is basically specifically where your customers actually spend the most time, right? So AI can really help you refine. There's three components that you need to be paying attention to in your marketing, which is your hook, your offer, and your follow-up, right? So your hook is the attention, right? We touched on that a little bit earlier when we asked the poll about, what would happen, what could you be focusing on in your business if you had more attention in your business? Your hook is what's going to accelerate that ideation. And instead of staring at a blank page, it's going to help you mine your customer language, because you have so much to already work with. Your customers are leaving reviews, or they're telling you comments, maybe in store or online on social media, and help you generate hooks, and then use AI to help you refine the winner, right? So that way you're not just coming up with the first idea that's generated by AI and then throwing it online. I always advise against that. You have to iterate, but you can use AI to help you narrow down that iteration and the winning hook. The second component I mentioned is offer, right? So getting those customers to take action, because attention is great, but what we really need to see in Q4, especially with all the time, money, effort, resources, team that we're putting to work, is conversion and seeing those customers take action, right? So AI can actually help you sharpen that clarity, because just because you think that it sounds or resonates with you as the owner of the business, whether your offer is a product or a service, it might not be resonating with your customers. They might not be understanding as quickly as they need to be what your offer is all about. And, there's a lot that gets lost in that first few seconds. And that's why we actually named this session, Stop the Scroll with AI, because those first few seconds are very critical. So AI can help you with that, and making a very clear call to action that really communicates what the next step is. Because at the end of the day, your customers, if they're overloaded with so much information that it's just so much easier if you tell them. And don't be afraid of being salesy. Just tell them what you want them to do, right? What's that next step that they need to be taking? And then finally, here's where I see so much drop off happen, which is in the follow up, right? So, yes, they've converted once, or maybe they have dropped off and you're trying to get them back. And then also talking about retention. This is where consistency comes to play, and this is where a lot of people drop off, especially after Q4, right? We put all this effort into the marketing machine, and then our customers don't hear from us again in Q1. It shouldn't happen. So we want to make sure that we can leverage AI to help us not only keep their attention and keep them engaged, but also even handle possible objections that come across when evaluating your offers, your products, and your services to get them to come back and reconsider. So my goal for today, by the end of today's discussion, is really just for you to know how to craft that next hook, your next offer and your next follow-up, and give you a weekly system essentially that's going to help you do it consistently through this very, very, very busy holiday season upon us.
Well, you're definitely right about that, about a lot of things that you just mentioned, but we do have an extremely busy holiday season approaching everybody. And attention really is the new currency, right? So when you talk about stopping the scroll, what does it really mean to like capture attention like that? And how do you know that you've earned it, right? How do you know that you have their attention?
Absolutely. So when it comes to like the reason I say attention is the new currency, because like I mentioned earlier, clarity, right? Attention without clarity is very expensive if your customer can't understand right away what your message is and what the next step is. You already lose them in those first few seconds. So our job is really to say the point first and then make the next step really, really obvious. And then that's when that attention with clarity becomes revenue, right? In the long run. So when you think about, the engagement or the interaction that a customer has with you at your place of business or online, in your emails, those first 3 to 5 seconds, the subject line, the opening, the headlines, that person is immediately scanning it to understand, is it right for them? And if they can't answer that question, yes, they're going to move on. So you can stop the scroll by hitting them with that point right away. And then following it immediately with a promise and just the next step. And that way, I can't tell you how many times I see people have amazing products and services, but you have to scroll through and read through to basically understand, what it is all about until you eventually give up. You don't want to do that. You don't want to keep them guessing. You want them to know exactly what they're supposed to do next. And that clarity, especially in the Q4 holiday noise, is going to help them. If you can deliver that clarity to them right away, they're going to keep coming back for more.
Do you feel like clarity and conciseness are like a natural output for AI content? Or do you really have to iterate for it?
That's a really great question. So AI is notorious for being concise, in my opinion. And it's not necessarily about always being concise. I mentioned the first few seconds, but that's not where it should stop, right? Because you also need to be able to communicate value. But the point is to capture their attention first, right? And that clarity is essential. And I can't tell you how many times I see people explain, for example, the benefits of a product right from the get-go when that's not resonating with someone because that's not necessarily what they're looking for, right? There's some kind of outcome that they're looking for. And if you can essentially leverage AI to read their minds, because you can actually use AI like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to do market research and get inside your customers' minds if you don't have, reviews or other data to tap into, just to understand a little bit more, what's on their mind, what are their pain points, what are the questions that they need answered, and really hone in on your marketing to address them.
So how do you, I guess, use AI for a number of these things, right? Whether that's market research or AI assisted copy or hooks or clarity. How do you do it?
Yeah, really good question. So when it comes to start like a starting point, You want to, and I always talk about when I'm educating on the actual process, you want to give as much context as possible into whatever AI model that you're using in order for it to understand the direction it needs to go into. Context followed by instructions. And that context can look like resources or assets that you already have. And that may be if you have a brand voice guideline, if you have, or if not, if you have posts or emails that you've already written before that you can feed into the LLM or large language model that you're using and have it learn your voice or the way that you talk, the way that you explain things, and also to help it get to know about your customer. So if you can describe your demographics and the psychographics of your customer and give it those insights just based on what you know already. Otherwise, what ends up happening is it will figure out the direction on its own and may not go in the right direction that you need to be going. So giving it a starting point is essential when you're doing that kind of research. And then once you have that, it's something that I will call a business profile or ideal client avatar. Then if you don't have a brand voice guideline, you can leverage it to help you build that and continue on with market research to understand, okay, what channels are my customers on, right? Especially when they are shopping, when they are booking services, like where do they do their research? Where do they learn, or what kind of content can help nurture them to uncover you, to discover you, or to go further down the customer journey with you? And then taking that and moving forward with creating a marketing strategy and a content plan based on that, right? The content plan is actually towards the end of that process. And then once you have that in place, you can actually create the content and repurpose it to multiple platforms to help you save that time, especially because in Q4, creating a whole email campaign and then a whole, video scripts to accompany that on social media, or, your printed material, all of that can be really time consuming. But if you can narrow things down to very clear, specific messaging that you want to focus on, and I'm going to share that later in the weekly flow that I'm going to recommend to you guys. That is going to be more repeatable and sustainable. So what I just covered was a bit of the foundations. And once you have, for example, that business profile, that ideal client avatar, the brand voice guideline in place, it's going to be much easier to go ahead and go into a weekly rotation and flow in order to create that kind of content that's going to resonate and help drive not only attention, but conversion and down the line retention.
So it sounds like you have to give it a lot of context and kind of guardrails, right? And I know you mentioned this 90-minute weekly flow, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. So, okay, let's say we've worked on our hooks, right? Like we have put in our brand guidelines, our voice, examples of copy that we like, things like that. We've given our LLM, our model, all of the context that we could give it, right? And it's come up with some hooks that we like, and we have it out there, right? How do we start to take that attention that we've gotten so far and turn it into actual revenue rather than maybe just a like?
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier about promise, right? When an offer can become a yes, when first of all, you capture their attention with the promise that resonates with the question that was top of mind for them or the need that they're trying to address for their pet. But that's not where you can stop, right? Where's the proof in that? If you have social proof, if you are able to leverage your customer reviews or testimonials to demonstrate that, give them examples, tell the story of someone else who had a similar pain point or problem. And literally, something that I love to do is taking a customer review, throwing it into an AI model, and basically repurposing, breaking it down into a variety of different pieces of content, whether it's to insert it into an email or to make an entire social post about it, because the communication doesn't stop at getting their attention. You have to communicate with these customers multiple times in order before they even buy. So that's one way, and then also giving them the path, right? So the call to action, the clear next steps, and making it super easy and clear for them, what are they supposed to do? And you may leverage AI to test which ones work, right? Do some A/B testing. And when you actually get the results back, if you look at your social media engagement metrics or your email marketing metrics, something I like to do is feeding that back into AI and saying, this is how it performed. This was the open rate, the click rate, any sales that were generated, particularly what segment it might have been that was the most engaged, and seeing how that performance stacks against my goals, right, for that business, and understanding, okay, what's the gap? How do we close that gap? How can we iterate this? What would a different version of this look like if we can test a different call to action or rephrase the promise differently so that it resonates a little bit better? Because something that's important is not to stop at your first draft or your first iteration. You have to take the content or the marketing that you're creating and evaluate, measure, the measurement, the metrics, the KPIs, and understand how is it moving you towards your goals or is it setting you back? And what can you do in order to get back on track? Because marketing does require some pivoting sometimes. Especially, during the season, you may find yourself testing a new offer, or you might have invested in bringing in inventory of a product that just isn't hitting. And instead of finding yourself at the end of Q4 not having made those sales, you might as well, stop and reflect and reevaluate, and then look, it basically talk to the AI model that you built this campaign out of to understand, okay, where could we have gone wrong and how can we fix it? Because it can be a really, really good advisor if you prompt it right. Because something I love to do is tell AI it's wrong, it got it wrong, or it could be better, even in the creation process. But it's important to revisit it after you've already published that marketing before you continue on to your next promotion or campaign.
You can't be afraid to kind of guide it with a stern hand sometimes and tell it that it, doesn't have all of its facts right. Occasionally it does get some things wrong. That's why it does still need a human operator. You mentioned, basically like bringing a customer along and continuing to build interest, right? So how do you turn, like, maybe specifically related to Q4, right? How do we go from someone that might just be interested in seasonal purchases, right? Or the things that you're offering in Q4 and really start to turn them into like a loyal customer during that quieter Q1 that I think all of us experience?
Absolutely. When it comes to the follow-up, right? And it's very expensive to acquire those customers in the first place. So the next best thing that you could possibly do is invest some time and effort into retaining that customer, right? And turning them into, a loyal customer beyond Q4. So the way I like to frame it is in terms of, making loyalty profitable is, starting off with, yes, that second purchase is going to cost a lot, far less than the first. You want to focus on smoothing that holiday dip over that most of us in the room are going to be facing in Q1 typically, so that you can build some predictable revenue in the first quarter of the year. And there's a couple of ways that you can engage those customers, right? So getting them to leave reviews, refer friends, respond to your messages faster, so that your campaigns perform even better. You want to be thinking about, what is that next point of communication or contact, even if it is asking them for something, right? So I see a lot of hesitation happen all the time when, and it goes into being salesy, right? With business owners who don't want to bother their customers. They don't want to send them too many emails or too much communication, but that's where, that's the continuing of the relationship. So you don't want to miss that opportunity, especially if you want, you can, if they had a good experience, you would never know if you didn't ask them for that feedback. So I'm going to give a couple of examples actually for each segment, right? For those who are retailers in the room, if you, with your orders or your products that are bought in store, if you give your customers a card that print out that invites them to January New Year, New Routine bundle, right? To help basically prime them and prep them for the next thing you want to sell them, and get them to start thinking about it, and then design an entire email campaign around that. If you are in services, grooming, boarding, daycare, and you can recommend your, especially first-time visitors, to rebook on the spot when they come with a small add-on perk that costs you barely anything to offer, and then afterwards confirm with a friendly reminder via email or text messaging. If you guys are using SMS marketing, that's fantastic. And then for brands, post-purchase email that may offer simple walkthroughs or advice on how to use the product, or best next product suggestion just a couple of weeks later. All of this is really harmless communication that can just help nurture that relationship, because you are giving them something besides a discount, right? Discounts don't really get people through the door. You're giving them something else to engage with you as the business and in their pets' lives, right? What is the next value add that you can present to their pet? And you can leverage AI to help you basically craft that whole outcome. You may have one specific initiative and then build out a whole marketing campaign around it.
I think it's really natural and easy for a lot of business owners to just default to discounts, right? But almost all of those examples you just gave are not, like, they don't cost the business owner any money really. So that's interesting. So let's move on to really, I guess, kind of like getting started, right? So before you publish anything created by AI, what do you think are like some of the key first steps that we should be doing?
Quality control. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. To this day, anything that you create with AI typically needs some iteration, but also, and it's not because can't get it right, but it's a large language model that is basing its output not just on what your input is, but everything that it's been trained on, right? So it's attempting to think for itself, and you need to review. Is the messaging clear, right? We talked about clarity. I can't overemphasize that enough. Is the information correct? AI tends to have hallucinations. This is a technical term, actually, hallucinations. And it will make up facts, or it will get the dates wrong. So you have to review that information before you publish it. And then also compliance, right? So when I say compliance, what I mean is we're dealing with pet care. And there may be implied health or medical claims or ingredient safety info that you may be addressing in that content, or there may be, breed stereotypes or misleading visuals. I have heard over the course of the year several times groomers tell me that they have customers walk into their shop with an AI generated dog that looks like unbelievable, and they want their dog groomed exactly like that. Like, really making sure that your content is reflective of the reality, right, is important. And then also making sure that it's on brand, right? So having context, like I mentioned earlier, to help set that brand, but also refine it afterwards, right? So before you publish anything, does this actually sound like you? Or your business brand voice? Because there's a reason why customers are coming to your business, right? They're coming to you and not somebody else because they want something that you specifically offer or know about more than somebody else does. So lean into that. You leverage AI to help you amplify that expertise is something I say all the time. And making sure when you're looking at for your messaging to be on brand, that even when something sounds good when it's said by AI, if it really isn't on brand at all for you, just leave it out, because we're dealing with humans and people, and they want to speak to people. There's so much out there that is AI generated today, and a human voice is very valuable. So it's a really delicate balance, and that quality control is so essential. And yes, you have to spend a few minutes, right, in order to do that quality control. But once you get into that flow and you've done it enough times, it can be really fast. Repetition is the mastery of skill. So after you've set up all of the context instructions and done quality control enough times, AI does save you time.
Quality control, couldn't agree more about how important that is. Your example of the grooming customer that came in with an AI dog just made me giggle thinking about like the early iterations of AI creating like dogs with 5 legs or 2 tongues or something like that. And I can actually say that a lot of the written AI content that's out there is like almost as obvious as like a messed up image that it generated. So I cannot stress it enough. Quality control is so important. So let's talk data. Like I'm such a geek and nerd when it comes to data, right? So when you're using AI, what metrics are you looking at, and how do you like help them, or how do you use them to help you make decisions down the road?
Absolutely. So any software or platforms that you use, it is really important that you can grab and download metrics from them, because I have heard over the last year there are still, from pet business owners who are still using platforms that don't give them any data reports. And that's a big red flag, okay? So make sure, task for anyone who hasn't downloaded a report from any of their platforms that you use, email marketing, social media, make sure you can actually access those metrics, because that is what you need to use to inform your strategy and your decisions about your strategy and the actions that you're going to take, right? The decisions, the time, money, effort that you're going to invest into your marketing for Q4. So what I'm talking about is, for example, looking at inside your CRM or email marketing platform, looking at those reports that communicate to you the open rate, the click-through rate, which segments, hopefully you are segmenting, right? Or you can create segments inside your platform to understand, who's engaging with your brand more than others. What are people most interested in? And taking that and then exporting it and importing it into the AI model that you're using. The reason I say that you have to take that step, because we're not yet at the point where everything is flawlessly automated, where AI can pull. We are getting very close. ChatGPT launched agent mode this summer, and it's pretty nifty in terms of how it's able to access a lot of websites. When it needs you as the human to intervene in order to log into something, it'll prompt you to do that. But it's not there yet in terms of being able to pull these data reports and create live dashboards independently. It still needs a human to do, do some manual steps, but we will be there at some point. In the meantime, I encourage everyone, start reading your numbers, start looking at your data reports, throw them into ChatGPT, especially if you don't know how to read it, and ask it to evaluate it for you, right? And the other key thing when you're looking at metrics is you need to communicate what your goals are. What's your target? What do you want to not just those specific metrics to look like, but overall, what is the target that you're after by the end of Q4? And then prompting AI to give you, its analysis of that data and the strategies it can recommend to help move you towards those goals. It can literally be your marketing manager and advisor in that sense, strategically. You don't have to leverage AI just to create and publish content. You can leverage it to help you make data-driven decisions like that. You may be asking yourself, what kind of metrics you should be looking at. If you're a retailer, obviously you want to look at, the traffic in the store and whether they're attributable to any specific promotion that you're doing. And, you may have in-store QR scans, or you may have point of sale promo codes. You may have some redemptions. You may also train your staff to ask people what brought you in today, right? And compare that week over week to understand, okay, how are people hearing about us? Is the traffic coming through on via email, or from social media, or word of mouth and referrals, or other events and strategic partnerships? The other things that you want to look at as a retailer is your average order value, right? And potentially, is there something that you can do without necessarily discounting to help increase that average order value? So, grabbing those kinds of numbers is going to give you a lot of information in terms of, where do you need to focus on, rather than trying to guess where you need to focus on. If you're a service provider, grooming, daycare, trainer, looking at all the slots that you opened up for Q4, how many of those are getting filled? How many rebookings are you getting? And are people doing add-ons, right, to their services? And add-ons, oh my gosh, is such a great way to bump up your revenue, but yet highly underutilized. So if you're not basically putting on add-ons, you're missing a potential, or maybe separating out bundles and primary services. That's another point that could help really increase your revenue through Q4, especially when you think about it. In Q4, pet parents want to treat their pets. They want to do something special for them. The holidays are coming up. So, you can even ask the AI model that you're using, explain to them what your core service is and the different add-ons that you can potentially do, and ask it to help you craft that offer and what it could look like, or a bundle, even, right? So that way you can, put a few more things together and potentially increase that average or service value. And then for brands, when you're looking at when people come to your website to purchase, first off, how many of those sections are leading to purchase, right? And understanding, what are where you might be losing attention. So looking at the traffic inside your product pages, and then also, if you have, hopefully you do, if you're a brand, a product, or manufacturer, add-ons as well. I know I've been talking about add-ons for a bit, but literally, like, are you suggesting any products that could be added on to that order based on what type of product they're looking for? And you don't have to figure this out yourself. This is something I'm going to emphasize: is you can leverage AI to help figure out, what strategy makes the most sense there, based on the current rate, or lack thereof, if you want to introduce that as a function on your website. And then also seeing, the repeat purchase rate. So for those who are, users to the, if you're a brand website, if, looking at their purchase path and seeing, what is the length of time that passes between repeat purchases, whether it's the same product or whether it's coming back for another product, and asking AI to look at those numbers and understand how can we optimize this and get them to come back to our site to come and buy more, or, complement their purchases with other products in a shorter time frame. So that's just a quick snapshot. And in terms of how you can basically loop this, so you can, do this in a repeatable fashion, is when you have all of this information, you have some basic metrics that are relevant to your type of business that you want to track, putting it into your AI model that you're using and asking it for that feedback and understanding, and then using it to test something that you haven't done before. I gave you a bunch of ideas just now. And then every week, if you can, looking for those trends and seeing, where there's movement. And it's really about progress, not perfection, right? So I know I just went through a lot of information there.
Ton of information, so many good ideas there. One thing I just want to know is that, like, anytime that you feed the LLM data, it treats it as context, right? It gets smarter and it can help you create better ideas and more effective solutions for those issues. So a lot of the people here, like a lot of our attendees here, mentioned that time and resources were like the biggest pain point to like really getting the most out of AI or holiday marketing specifically. So let's say someone's only got 45 minutes, right? How should they spend 45 minutes? Maybe per week, or I don't know if it's per day, maybe per week, something like that.
Absolutely. I would break it down into three 15-minute blocks, right? So overall, and that's the weekly rhythm that I was referencing earlier. You can take longer. You can, typically you can spend maybe 90 minutes on your marketing a week, efficiently. But if you only had 45 minutes, you want to break it down into planning, producing, and then publishing and reviewing, right? So if you are planning your content, picking what's the outcome for the week that you need, what's that revenue area, whether it's specific products that are not moving or services that are not getting booked, and then drafting those hooks that will leverage customer language and resonate with them, as I mentioned at the very beginning, and then crafting the offer around it, right? So taking something you already have, but using AI to help you communicate it in a way that follows that promise plus proof and call to action flow that I mentioned, and then a call to action with a trigger, right? So if you can track, especially via email, if you're using email marketing, if somebody is clicking on that at all. If they're not, that's going to tell you a lot of information when we get to the review stage. Anyways, so the next part, because I know we're running short on time, if anyone has more questions about this, I can elaborate, but I want to get through it. The next component for 15 minutes is producing, right? So you can create 3 assets with that same message, right? The hook, the offer, and that call to action. And you can create an email, you can create a social post, and then a follow-up. It could be another email or in-store script if you have brick and mortar, or even a DM if you are prompting people to engage with you on social media. And leverage AI to help you draft those assets, right? The copy for them, and basically publishing and reviewing it. So, like I mentioned, I walked you through a whole quality control process, right? And you want to publish to, whatever the most important channel for you is. For many cases, I'll say email is a great channel to lead with, because that is owned and it's not borrowed the way social media is in terms of the algorithm and whatnot. And then repurposing it, right? So drafting it, I would say I would lead with email, and then repurposing it for a secondary channel like social media. And then after you get the results from that content that's published, throwing it back into your AI model. This is how many click rate, open rate we had, how many sales or bookings, and this is, or on social media, this is what the engagement was in terms of the likes or any new followers gained, or how many were sent or reposted. And then ask AI what it would keep for next time, what it would get rid of, and then what it would have you iterate. Basically, I'll sum it up really nicely, so that way you can just take that and repeat it the following week. So basically, what I said was, in 15 minutes, plan. So you're going to pick an outcome, you're going to choose the hook, you're going to write that offer. In the next block, produce. You have your email subject and 2 lines, and then a social caption, right, with a headline. And then finally, when you're publishing, and step 3, doing that quality control, you basically take what metrics you got, feed it back into the AI, and then that sets you up for the following week.
I think all of that sounds doable within 15 minutes. And as we start to wrap up here in the next few minutes, guys, if you do have questions, I would encourage you to put them into the chat here. I have one more question for you, Jolanta, before we get into the audience Q&A. So for basically like all of our attendees, but anyone else that might be watching the replay of this, what's the next step, I guess, to be like really ready for Q4 with their marketing?
Absolutely. The number one thing is you need to start, right, with a goal in mind and decide in advance, what does success look like, right? So position yourself for that success ahead of time by deciding what is your outcome, what is the result that you're after, what will it look like? Define it. Use those metrics, right, to understand your sales volume, your bookings, your engagement. If you are, especially if you are a newer business, if you're just building your audience, right? So audience building may be a goal for you, and picking that goal, setting that target, and then designing your marketing strategy with that target in mind, right? And what is the gap that needs to be closed? Specifically, what numbers do you need to achieve and attain in order to get it? Because AI is very data driven, and you can partner with AI to help you make progress towards those goals and design an entire marketing strategy that will help you meet them. And that marketing strategy is not a one size fits all. It's going to be it should be custom tailored towards not just your business, but your audience, their needs and their wants, what's top of mind this holiday season, and what is going to move them from attention to conversion to, in the future, retention beyond Q4. So you want to think about the big picture first, and then start leveraging AI to help you execute it and implement it and do it consistently, right? Having that repeatable flow that you can is simple to follow is going to make this so much more doable for you. So I really want to encourage everyone. Q4 is generally very overwhelming and busy for a lot of pet business owners, and AI is supposed to help you take the overwhelm out of it.
It is a huge time saver when used right, and I think that, if you start big picture, like you said, and then drill down in details, making sure you're giving it enough context, it can certainly be a huge help as you continue to adopt it. So guys, feel free to drop some questions in the chat here. I think we have a couple minutes for a few questions. We have a really good one here, actually. So this, Connie is wondering if you can come up with a hook on the spot, Jolanta. So Connie's business, it sounds like she's a breeder of English Golden Retriever puppies. If they're ready to go home in mid-November specifically, what would the hook be? And she mentioned that, these are live animals, and if that might provide a different type of marketing, which I actually don't necessarily think it does because it's still holiday marketing and still product, but I'm gonna let you take the answer.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When it comes to marketing, especially by niche, I would say, adapting the strategy based on, what you're trying to sell. I understand why that comes into mind. But in terms of, the form of marketing, because that's where I would start is like, what channels do I want to use in order to communicate my message? Where are my customers, ideal customers, actually spending time? So if you have an email list, and you've been already nurturing them, right? And now is the time where they're primed for action. They've been on your list for a while. If you can segment them, right? And because as you said, you have puppies that are ready to go home mid-November. So they need to make a decision now, right? To reserve those puppies is very important. So yeah, in terms of a hook, really great question. Let me think this. So English Golden Retriever puppies. Ideally, those people who are on your list are or following you on social media, they follow you. Hopefully, you mentioned education earlier, Connie. So because you are already educating them on this puppy care or breeding and developing them into these amazing English Golden Retrievers. So taking that. Essentially customer journey, where you're moving them from awareness towards, making that decision to finally bring a puppy home. First, I think that hook needs to address, the excitement, right, that they would have in Q4, especially it's the holidays, to bring home a wonderful puppy to their, to their family. But also, making them feel like you are going to still be there for them afterwards, right? So, the education that you're doing is already such a great primer for them. And, because bringing home a puppy can be overwhelming. It doesn't matter what breed it is, right? There's a lot that goes into it. And customers love nothing more than feeling like you're taking care of them, you're looking out for them. So in that hook that you're going to present to them, if it's going to be through an email, for example, or even on social media, I would build on the excitement and make them say yes, they are ready, and you're going to be there every step of the way. So and if you want, Matt, when you share the last slide, I'm actually looking for some live demos where I can actually show on a screen how I would do this, right? How I would actually build the hook inside ChatGPT, for example. I have a session coming up where I'm going to be doing that. So that's why I'm not showing it here, because that takes a little bit more than the 3 minutes that we have left. I want to make sure we answer any other questions, but I invite you to come to that session so that I can show you on screen and everybody in the room what that actually looks like, crafting that hook and using AI to do it.
Well, let's talk about that session, right? Like, where can today's attendees go to, further their training and education in AI specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been dying to do this session for a while, which is, I'm calling it the State of AI and Pet Marketing 2025, because I want to break down for everybody what's actually working, what they can skip, and basically giving you a practical 90-day plan that you can execute to show up consistently and measure what matters and turn that momentum into sales. And doing that using the tools that are already in your hands, right? So no code tools, I mentioned ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. And in that, I referenced a lot of different strategies today. In that session, I'm actually going to give attendees a prompt playbook so that they can plug and play what we're doing during that live session or even inside the demo that I just referenced. And you can do it after the session as well, right? On your own time. So if you go ahead, scan this link, scan the QR
chat too.
and yeah, and absolutely inside the chat as well. That session is happening on October 1st at 4 p.m. It's 90 minutes long. We're going to be able to really dive into that subject very deeply. So today was more of an overview just to help everybody get started with Q4. But this is where I'm excited to help you finish out 2025 strong, right?
I think a live workshop of hooks, offers, and follow-ups sounds like a incredible opportunity, especially if it's free. So guys, feel free to register for the State of AI in Pet Marketing 2025. Jolanta, before we let you go here, I do want to make sure everyone can get in the chat and thank Jolanta for sharing her time and her expertise here. We appreciate having you here on the Pet Industry Network webinar here. For everyone else, well, actually, I'm gonna wait, guys. Let me see some energy in the chat here. Let me see some appreciation for Yolanta's time and effort here. So, yeah, Yolanta, thank you, guys. If you're not signed up for our email list, please head over to www.petindustryNetwork.com/waitlist. The Pet Industry Network brings these monthly webinars of education from pet industry experts to other pet businesses. Like I said, every single month. Our next webinar is actually Tuesday, October 21st. More details to come on that. But in order to stay in the know, keep an eye on your inbox and our social media platforms and sign up for our emails at petindustryNetwork.com/waitlist. Big thank you again to Jolanta, and thank all of you guys for being there today. And that is all we got for you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you guys committing to continuing to further your education and utilizing some of the best new tools available for you in your business and your marketing. So it really does make a huge difference. And Jolanta, once again, thanks for sharing so much information for us.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. And I hope to see many of you again in my next session on October 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern, same time in a Zoom room, and really get practical in this session and more hands-on so that you can finish 2025 with measurable results by leveraging AI-powered strategies.
Wishing you guys the best of luck through September and October until we see you next time.